Hey guys, welcome back to Chase the Unknown. Thank you so much for joining us for another week. My name is Roger Sisk. I'm one of your co-hosts here. Today we have Trinity and Jarred talking to Miss Emily Finke, who's a creative entrepreneur here in our area. She's also an opera singer. How about that, right? So cool. So without further ado, go ahead and take it away, Trinity.
Emily, why don't you tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do?
Well, I am an opera singer. I started singing when I was like 14, which was a huge change for me because I had never really sang before. And I started in music when I was 6, playing the guitar. Started getting violin lessons when I was 8, added piano when I was like 10. And I never had a voice though. And I just didn't know where, getting to the end of high school, I didn't know what I was supposed to do. I had so many different interests and things. And all of a sudden I just wanted to start singing. And I sounded terrible at first. And I was just I tell my mom sometimes, I'm like, why did you even think that this was something that, nobody told me that I sounded as bad as I did. My mom has always been very encouraging. But looking back, I was just what made me think that I wanted to do that? But it was just something that was on my heart. And as I continued, I just really saw God's hand in the middle of all of that and ended up here now. Started getting lessons when I was about 15 or 16. I'm 20 now, and I'm an opera singer. And it's just been a really wild journey from there. But that's when most people ask, that's the first thing that comes out. But I kind of classify myself as a creative entrepreneur because I do anything and everything within the creative aspect in the entertainment industry. I write. I do a lot of writing. I'm a musician and a singer. I direct some stuff. Just anything that's creative.
Oh, wow. Cool. That's really cool.
Yeah.
So you didn't start singing until you were 15 or 16?
Yeah.
Wow. Most people start singing when they're 5, 6, something like that.
I know. Hard to get past for me was that I would look at all these people that, especially that were my age, that had been doing this for so long. And I'm like, I'm just starting, and I felt a little left out.
Right. I can actually relate to that because I never took voice lessons either for the longest time. I just recently started taking them, and I'm 27. So I've only been taking them for 2 years, 3 years, something like that. Yeah. So it's very new to me, and they put me in a class with all these teenagers, and I'm like, what are you doing? Because I look so young. So
I got private voice. I get private coaching, so I didn't have to.
Yeah, they wouldn't. Well, the very first place I went, it's not that they wouldn't give me private lessons. They thought I would do better in a group setting for some reason. But they put me in with all these teenagers, so it starts with 14, and then I was the oldest. So it was a very interesting experience. But yeah, so I can understand how overcoming that would be very challenging.
Yeah.
And you know what I think is great? Is the fact that you mentioned I was watching your videos earlier, and you're amazing, and I never would have known that you had to build up to that, Yeah. And you said, at first you weren't maybe that great, and I think a lot of people miss that what you see is the culmination of a lot of work.
It is.
And I'm still terrible, so thanks for saying that, because now I know there's hope for me, so I can maybe one day be an opera singer.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. And this is where I knew it was God right from the start, because, well, at the time I didn't really realize, and it had a lot to do with I was 14 when I really got the interest in changing from playing violin, because I started playing violin professionally, getting hired places when I was 12. And so it was just this, having taken violin for so long. And I even know my mom, when I told her that I wanted to change and start getting voice lessons, she was like, you cannot stop practicing the violin. We've put in so much hard work. And it was something I loved. And that was a stipulation, though. She's like, if you get voice lessons, you cannot stop taking violin lessons, or practicing your violin at least. And so that was a big change for me to suddenly start pursuing this instead. And at the time it was just like my voice, like I was 14, I still had a very young sounding voice. And in fact, it's something that I'm still working through. I'm 20 and I just had a voice change. And so now I'm like working through all of this now, trying to learn new techniques and things for this voice that I have, which is something that it's possible that your voice can change this late in life. It's not that common. Most happen when they're still in their teens, and mine just had this huge shift. So, but I just knew that it was something that God was telling me you need to do. And so through all of that, it's just been his guidance to showing me where my own talents lie in this, and that I had a talent for it, but he had to reveal that to me in his time.
So let me ask you, why opera? Because when most people say they want to be a singer, they want to do like, be like Pink or Katy Perry or Lauren Daigle or whoever. But why opera?
I started off wanting to be like a contemporary Christian artist. And it just was something that went over time. I remember first getting introduced to musical theater when I was about 15 and absolutely falling in love with it. And I knew that was where I was supposed to be. So my focus changed from being more of a recording artist to focusing on musical theater. Okay. And so I started looking into that. And the more I learned about the theater, the more I just fell in love with it. And it was something that I've only ever been in one stage production since in the last 5 years. And yet I just know that the theater holds my heart, because it was just like, even though I've never known this part of the entertainment industry, there's just a connection to it for me. And I still have that. But when I started getting voice instruction, I clicked with my voice instructor. I absolutely love him. We have so much in common, and we can just like talk very deeply about things in music and like beyond the music too, though. And I remember him telling me one time, because I told him that musical theater was kind of the thing that I wanted to do. And he wouldn't say anything, but I could tell that he was holding something back from telling me. And learning classical music is a part of getting voice instruction. So it was something that I had to do, because you have to learn those techniques no matter what you sing. And the more I practiced that, the more I started to like it. And I finally told him, I'm like, I really like singing this stuff. And he goes, well, I just never understood why somebody with a beautiful classical voice like yours would ever want to sing musical theater. And I would just like sat there and I was like, what? And so I was like, okay. And so I started thinking about that. And the more I learned about classical music and the world of opera and how much I could connect with it, I still love musical theater and so many things about it. But opera for me is just that, taking it to the next step on a deeper level. And there's so much drama that so many people miss in the music aspect of it, that it's just music. And I'm like, but that music is so much drama and I love it. And so it was just something that my voice lended itself to opera more than musical theater, to be completely honest. I don't belt, and a lot of musical theater now you have to know how to belt, and that was something that I wasn't interested in learning and I didn't think would suit my voice. And so I just kind of went with what my voice did naturally, and that was opera.
Well, I mean, hey, there's always a reason for everything, and that's why I was curious, is because I don't understand opera. I've never been somebody to understand it. So whenever I've done like voice, I've always tried for like, contemporary Christian or country or something like that, which would suit, well, I don't even know, my Southern accent, it would suit country much better than an opera style. Right. But that's why I was curious, is because there's a lot of people who I wouldn't have thought like, oh, let's do opera. And I'm like, why? But now it makes sense, because you have a deeper meaning for the music, which is very important, especially in musical theater or opera. Either one, you have to understand and appreciate the music aspect of it.
Absolutely. So, I actually just wrote an article on my blog kind of talking about this, because my mom she would enjoy listening to classical music, and like my sister and I starting music at such young ages and playing classically. that was something that she got involved in. I was actually homeschooled. My sister and I were both homeschooled for our entire lives. We never went to public school. And so my mom has always been extremely involved in our lives because she was the one teaching us. So when we started getting music lessons, she actually made us, I was 6 when I told her I want to take guitar lessons, and my sister was 8, and we started at the same time. And we went to her and she goes, no, you don't really want to do that. You don't want to learn music. And because my mom's a science person, and she knew that if we took music, she would have to learn it too in order to help us. And we were like, yeah, it really is something we want to do. We were very adamant about it. And so she said, okay, if you're going to take music lessons, you have to promise me that you are going to take lessons for at least a year. You cannot just start, 2 weeks later decide that you don't like it and stop. You have to be dedicated and practice for 1 year. And then after that, we can reevaluate and decide if you like it or not. We took for 1 year, and much to my mom's disappointment at first, we loved it and wanted to continue. And here we are 14 years later, still doing it. But my mom had to learn about all of this stuff. She can't play an instrument, but she has just as much knowledge as I do, pretty much, because she was sat in on every single lesson. So when it came to me getting voice lessons again, she sits in on the lessons and she learns. She didn't like opera. She didn't understand it, didn't want to listen to it, and didn't enjoy it. And over the years of me learning about it and coming up, Mom, you got to listen to this person, and talking about it, we were driving almost every single day in the car together. I started reading her the libretto of an opera. It was one of the comedies, The Marriage of Figaro. She fell in love with it. And from then on, it's just been growing and growing and growing gradually until she now appreciates and even enjoys some opera.
Oh, wow.
That's
Interesting.
neat how you kind of like expanded her horizons on that one.
Absolutely.
Like you brought a science woman to the arts. Really cool.
Yeah, she's tried to bring me to the sciences very often, and it just doesn't work, unfortunately. I'm like, I'll bring you to my world, but I just can't go to that world.
Yeah, I can understand that. My boyfriend tries to bring me into he's an engineer, or he's in college for engineering, and so he tries to bring me into this whole math world, and I'm sitting here like, I don't understand calculus. Don't even try with calculus 2. Y'all are lucky I know what 2 + 2 equals. So that's about as good as it's going to go.
It's actually really interesting because for me, I absolutely love math, and there's so much math in music. So the two just go right hand in hand for me. The more I learn about math, the more I understand music. The more I understand music, the more I understand math. So who knows, if you start learning more about music, maybe even your math interest will.
Maybe, but I'm not gonna test those waters. I don't think. I'm not. If I start learning math, then my boyfriend might start expecting too much out of me. So we don't want to do that now. Yeah.
Sometimes it's good to just say, you know what, I have this one area that I focus on, and if I need your help, I'll ask you for it.
Exactly. So you said you had an interest in musical theater too when you were growing up. So does that mean you do some acting as well?
I do, yeah. I've been trained in acting and modeling and several different areas of the industry. So acting and singing is something that I still work on together. It's something that's never come easily for me. I can act and I can sing. Putting the two together has always been kind of difficult for me, but it's something I still work on.
Yeah. Oh, that's understandable. Have you been in like any type of film or production recently, or music videos, something like that?
Yeah, I've been kind of flying under the radar for the last couple of years, working creatively at home. There's so much that for me goes in behind the scenes that just like I was kind of telling you a little bit before this podcast that I've been working so much on projects on my own, and I'm just now getting to the point where I'm getting to a place where I'm going to be able to share these things with the world. Yeah. So I'm actually getting into the industry itself. Before it was just me getting ready. And so now I'm actually starting to jump into the waters of the industry.
Oh, wow. That's really cool. Well, we're excited to hear all about it. And you said you write too, and you said you have a blog. What is your blog about?
My blog is anything I feel like writing about. It mostly, I write fiction, like short stories, and I post those on there, but I also Right, musings that I have. This latest series that I just started is called More Than Music, and it really explores, like I'm a musician. I haven't gone to college, so my music theory is lacking a little bit, but I teach myself and learn as I go, kind of a thing. My sister has her master's degree in music, so any information I need, I just mooch off of her education. But
fair enough.
It's this blog. I have learned so much about music theory over the years, and I enjoy learning about that and all this technical side of music, but this blog really goes beyond all of that and has nothing to do with the actual music itself, but more about the different ways that we enjoy different artists and styles of music beyond what the music itself sounds like.
It's very obvious that you are a very faithful individual. Have you ever found your faith in any of these arts challenged? And maybe like, how often do you find your faith driving what you create, since you create so often and you create so much?
Oh, absolutely. Well, I've been really, really blessed in the sense that I have a wonderful family and group of friends and support group behind me. One of the best things I ever did was go through an organization called AMTC, Actors, Models, and Talent for Christ. And I made some lifelong friends in there that are on this journey too, so we can relate to each other in sharing our faith. But absolutely, in getting into the secular industry, it's a struggle at every turn to I even come to places where I have to remind myself, because I know some people have been called to the Christian entertainment industry, some have been called to the secular entertainment industry, and I personally have felt called to the secular industry, and that's something that a lot of people couldn't understand. They thought that I would lose my faith along the way, and I kept reminding them, I'm like, look, I'm not going to. I have my family behind me. I still read my Bible and do all these things, but I feel called to minister in this area. And I remember some specific times, one specifically, I was auditioning for a show at the theater, and there were a couple words in it that I wasn't comfortable saying. And I changed them, and the assistant director took me outside and said, we can't change the words to the show. And it was really great because I knew him, and I knew he knew me, and he knew what my beliefs were. And he said, I know that you probably don't want to say these words. He said, so you just think about it, but we unfortunately cannot change the words to the play. So you're going to have to make a decision. And I said, well, I appreciate, you understanding. He says, I know you're not this kind of a person that would say these things. So you just have to decide. And I said, you're right. I wouldn't say these things. That's why I changed to the words in the audition. And so I had to step away from getting that role. And from what he indicated, I was one of the leading choices for the role. And I had to step away from that.
So you have to make sacrifices.
You do, but I sat down one day and I made out a list of things that I was willing to do, characters that I was willing to portray, words that I was willing to say and not say. And that has been really helpful in times when you're faced with these things and you're having to make a almost spur of the moment decision to go back to have a place of reference and say, okay, these are what my values are. And the other thing is, my mom is so much involved in everything that I do that I can go back to her and we can discuss it and say, is this something that goes against my beliefs? Because even sometimes we can forget or tend to stretch what our beliefs are. And so it's helpful to have people and in your life to remind you of what those beliefs are. And but even for me, to have it specifically written down.
I mean, well, and that's a good way to have it too. If you have a list, I mean, as an AMTC grad myself, I've had to come through and think about that as well. Well, what am I willing to do on camera? What am I not willing to do? Because there's been roles that they've wanted me as the main choice, but because there was a nude scene or something, and I would decline the role because I'm not the type of person to do that on camera. There are people who are willing to do that on camera. I'm just not one of those people. Right. And my thing is that I have to remember it to be non-judgmental of the people who are willing to do that, because I mean, there are, their beliefs are different than mine.
Right.
And just because I believe something doesn't necessarily mean that somebody else will agree with me. Mm-hmm. And I mean, my own, my parents have often said, we don't even agree 100% on everything, and we're a married couple. Mm-hmm. So nobody 100% agrees with anybody on anything. So I've had to take myself and think, well, what am I willing to do on camera? And I think everybody does that, especially when they graduate AMTC, they go into reality, their first show or audition or whatever, and then they're like, hey, we have to think about these things, which is something that they tell you in AMTC to do, but it doesn't really hit you until after you've graduated the program, and then you're like, oh crap, they're right, we got to do this. What are we supposed to do now? So it's been one of those eye-opening things that I've had to think about. Right. And that's why I wanted Right Time, is because I knew that it was something that I was comfortable writing, I was comfortable attaching my name to. And exactly. That's a lot of things people don't realize, is once you do this role, even if you are, if it's a role that you're comfortable playing on camera, but it's not something who you are in real life, your name is still attached to it. So you have to make sure that you're aware of, am I willing to live with this for the rest of my life? Is this something I want people to know me for? Whether you're just an extra or not,
Oh, exactly. And I think that you and I have a lot of similarities there. And this is kind of answering the second question that Jared asked, is that keeping what my faith, I was trying to remember what exactly you asked. It was something about how my faith motivates my creativity now. Was that it?
And specifically, I guess I would say the content. Yeah.
Yeah. And so what Trinity was saying is that I've kind of decided to go down that same road of just creating my own content and being the boss, so to speak, of what I'm doing. I've been in that same situation, being very typecast, like Trinity said. Even with my singing, I've had people tell me that I look so young, and that when I sing, I sound so old. I need to sing younger to match the way I look. And I go, this is the way I sing. Like, I can't change that. But so just from things like that, and also from a place of letting my faith be the motivation of all I do, coming to a place of saying, you know what, I'm going to make my own path in this industry instead of trying to follow what the industry says that you have to do. But I never want what I do to come off as, I know some people wouldn't necessarily agree with some of the content that I make as being Christian, because it's not overtly, it doesn't, like, I don't write Christian music per se, but my faith is behind those songs, whether or not it's in the lyrics explicitly or not. But everything I do is always in prayer and within my own beliefs. So with that, my faith drives what I do, even if it's not explicitly seen.
So I've got one final question for you, is to what advice would you give to anybody who's starting out in the entertainment industry?
I think one of the biggest things that people should do even before entering is really learn who they are, both as a Christian and as a person. I know it was probably a year, I graduated AMTC in 2017, and it was probably a year after that before I really understood who I was and what my own aspirations were. And even like my aspirations changed. God can throw some curveballs in there and be like, you thought that I was going this way with it, and now we're going this way. And so even those can change, but I understood myself much better as a person and as a Christian, what my beliefs were about a year after AMTC. And it just took a lot of soul searching and a lot of self-evaluation. And with that allowed me to be more authentic with the people around me, and the following that I'm trying to grow. So I just think that if you know yourself inside and out and who God has called you to be, then you can't be shaken, and you'll be able to be more authentic and real to your audience, as well as be able to create stuff that you're actually passionate about. Because just because you think you're passionate about it here, if you don't fully understand where that passion is coming from, a year down the road, you'll say, I don't really care about that anymore.
All right. I think that was everything, but we did want to know where we could go to find all of your information, like your blog and your YouTube channel, that
my
type of
blog
information.
is on my website. I do have all the links on my website. My website is Emily Finke, F as in Fred, INKE.com. And my Facebook, it's just my name, Emily Finke. Instagram is my name. And my YouTube channel is my name as well. Unfortunately, it doesn't really have a special link as of now. Like one of those really long ones, all the letters and words behind it.
Well, it was really great to talk to you, Emily. We really appreciate you coming on and talking with us and sharing your insight.
Oh, yeah. Thank you so much. I really enjoyed it.
Thank you so much for joining us. Yeah.
Yeah, we appreciate it.
Thank you guys so much for joining us this week on Chase the Unknown. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did. Make sure you join us next Wednesday. We'll be talking to Laura May, the head of Christian Casting. If you're watching this interview right now here on YouTube, make sure you go check out our audio edition on your favorite podcast platform, such as Apple Podcasts or Spotify. And if you're listening to this podcast already, make sure you go check out our video version on our Right Time Productions YouTube page. So until next time, guys, go ahead and chase your unknown.